on playing one more.
We lost the keys to the gaming lounge.
What's up, y'all? We're back. This is the final panel. Did you guys have fun? I hope you learned something, and this panel is going to be super exciting. This is talking about innovation in the DMV community. So I'm going to start to my right with somebody that you may or may not know, but could you just introduce yourself and give a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm one of the founders of Community Media and also our CEO, and also one of the managing partners of the Kickback. So honestly, I want to first and foremost say thank you for everybody that came. Thank you to all the schools. Literally, we know that this is a school day, so we're just really excited to finally bring this opportunity to somewhere outside of Metro Atlanta, and we're really pleased to be here this afternoon.
I'm Andrew McNeil. I'm the Vice President of Esports at Monumental Sports and Entertainment here in DC. So I oversee our esports programs, the NBA 2K League, Team Wizards District Gaming, our Caps Gaming NHL esports programming, our esports programming at District D, our esports facility right next to Capital One Arena.
Hey guys, I'm Jasmine Maeda. I'm an ex-pro basketball player turned entrepreneur, the founder of Round 21, where we prioritize self-expression in sports. Really excited to be here at the Kickback with all of you because tomorrow all of Round 21's WNBA products that you can wear are now in the game. So that's exciting for us to now be a part of your community.
Love that.
And my name is Lance Wesson. I am the Director of Business Development Sales for Events DC. Events DC is the sports and entertainment authority for Washington, D.C. So any event, entertainment or sports-wise that comes into the district, my company has a hand in it. So you're welcome.
Thank you. So the first question is, what makes the DMV region unique when it comes to innovation? Anyone?
Sure, I'll start. It's even interesting, as I mentioned, our company, we're all based down in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're able to come up here this week for the Kickback, but I grew up in Columbia, Maryland for the most part, and it's funny enough, in preparation for this panel, I was actually doing some thinking like, what is innovative, especially when we talk about gaming. And what I remember is that my mom, when I was in like 7th or 8th grade in Columbia, Maryland in 2007, there was this place in Columbia called Cyberden. And what Cyberden was a gaming lounge like District E, about 17 years ahead of its time. And I remember we used to get dropped off here, me and my friends in middle school, high school, and we used to stay here for hours and play all of our favorite games. But even then at the time, we didn't know anything about the gaming industry, right? And so even when I think back about what is innovative about the DMV, I think back about the entrepreneur who created Cyberden. Unfortunately, the business didn't last because he was so far ahead of like gaming and mainstream. But it's been a huge part now when I think about why I started Community, and I was like, what gave me the insight or the idea? A lot of it goes back to my upbringing here in the Maryland area, being around sports, being around music, being around culture, but having that Cyberden connection specifically, I think is what really gave me some insight to go down this route of gaming as well.
I think the other thing too is there's so many universities in the area. There's so many people who are born and raised in the DMV, but also people coming from outside of the DMV to come to some of these universities. The age profile of the city, the general area is so young. I think DC, Arlington, a lot of these areas have some of the highest percentage of millennials in the country. And like these are the people who have sort of the creative ideas, the ability to take risks in all the ways that a lot of other folks do and a lot of other communities don't have.
I would say there's so much to discover. I was fortunate to spend 6 years at Under Armour leading marketing, and the Baltimore area has such a vibrant creative energy source. DC is this melting pot of government and innovation through creativity and culture, and the sports entities here are often a really strong energy center as well. So there's so much to discover, and I would say DMV is an opportunity to find new tribes and find new places to create and connect, unlike a lot of other cities where it's a little bit more in your face. And so to me, that continues to keep this innovative spirit of inspiration because you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, literally everything they just said. As Andrew mentioned, I'm actually a transplant. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, but I moved out here after college, and it was a culture shock. DC or the DMV area just has its own culture, its own everything. All of you, know about go-go music. If you go anywhere in the world, that points directly back here to DC. So, and they're proud and they stand on that. So, the DMV is, stands on creating their own culture and being innovative in every way they can.
Thank you. So what are some of the issues or challenges facing the DMV community, and how can innovation help to solve them?
I would say reputation. I think when you think of innovation or you see places on a map like San Francisco or New York or even, Los Angeles, you think of tech and fashion, and the District of Columbia or Maryland or Virginia, at first glance, their definitions don't necessarily stick with innovation, but I see that as a huge opportunity to create our own culture of innovation. And there are so many opportunities to co-create with people. I mean, this panel as an example, we were backstage talking about what we're doing and what he's doing and how there can be synergies. I think starting with what's your story when you're out and about is a new way to build together, which I think has an opportunity here in the DMV that other cities may not.
I think one thing that's it's more of a now problem, but just within the current climate of the economy, I think access to capital is kind of difficult. I mean, I think we saw that the Fed lowered interest rates yesterday, which hopefully will help in that. But it's still an issue for folks who are trying to get a startup off the ground and that sort of thing. But I think there's still opportunities to innovate within maybe larger corporations. Like, I've never had to raise funds for a startup. I've never had to bootstrap or anything like that. But I've done a lot of creating new products, new ventures within larger companies. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing with esports at Monumental. So, there's opportunities even within some of those difficulties.
Yeah, I can definitely say the raising capital stuff is not that fun. But as far as, I'll say challenges, and I'll take a step back and, look at gaming and esports specifically, a lot of it comes down to capital and access, right, to the right infrastructure to actually participate. When we look around a lot of the schools that we work with, HBCUs, K through 12 alike, a lot of them have students that are interested. They have students that want to pursue these careers. But then when you start to realize that there is a pretty significant dollar amount attached to be able to starting a program within gaming, to hire someone full time to then manage that program. So we're always trying to find and create avenues or, opportunities for people to come together to then maybe find the motivation, maybe meet someone that they didn't know that could actually help them take that next step. I know Andrew said the word District E a few times up here, but how many people actually know that at the Capital One Arena that there's a gaming lounge that's owned by the Washington Wizards? Right, and I think that those are the type of points that we want to drive home, because we're here today. District E is here the rest of the year, right? And they're doing programming in the community. And so for us, it's about the biggest challenge for us is just lowering the barrier of entry, and like finding continuous ways and partnerships to do that and just create opportunities for everyone around.
We've got a table up on the concourse there too, so come by, swing by, say hi, and check out the facility.
Okay, so let's talk about new technology. So what new technology do you think will have the biggest impact on this community in maybe, let's say, the next 5 years?
I'll jump out there and just say AI.
Absolutely.
Artificial intelligence, and that could be for the better or for the worse. I mean, I know back when we were all in school and you had a 10-page paper that you had to write, you were sitting there with your pen and paper or in front of your computer writing that 10-page paper. Now you can just tell your phone, hey, write me a paper about innovation in Washington, D.C., and in a matter of seconds, you have your homework done. But I feel like there's a positive and a negative to that, because you actually lose the skills to do the work yourself because you're so reliant on technology to do the work. I'm sure that we've all been in the grocery store, heard a horror story about being in the grocery store, and nowadays these cash registers, they spell out the amount of change that the person is supposed to give you. If your change is $11.55, it says give them one $10 bill, one $1 bill, and the change. We've all been in the grocery store to where the system might be down and the person behind the register has no idea how to give me back my change. I feel like that's a negative side of technology. So you really, it can be used for good or for evil, as most things.
The AI point is really interesting, and I think Lance is right. I think that could be a big thing in the future. I mean, especially thinking about video games and game design. I think that could speed up a lot of processes in game design and development and create a lot of efficiencies that people can take advantage of. I mean, right now I'm playing Astrobot and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. But that was a game that was made by 30 people or 60 people in a 3-year period, and it's a AAA title. It's kind of rare nowadays, and so I think tools like AI may help things like that become more common, where games like that can be created by smaller teams on smaller budgets.
Yeah, and so to just give a different perspective, because I do think actually AI is going to be the next thing. That's there now, right, to their point. And honestly, it was just last week we're at Microsoft. Shout out to Darrell. I know he spoke a little earlier. And I actually went through my first Copilot training, and my mind was blown away, right? Just about the functionality and what can happen. But what I think honestly is going to be huge for younger generations is going to be the democratization of game design. So an example is Unreal Engine Fortnite, right? Which actually allows users, young kids, to make their own custom levels inside of Fortnite, and then young people can actually make money off of their friends playing on their level. So this is something that started about a year ago, and there are young groups that we work with throughout the country, specifically in Atlanta. I mean, you're talking about high school, college kids that are making 5 figures a month off of doing something that they already do with their peers. So, for young, I heard that Fortnite was a conversation earlier. You all should definitely look into UEFN. Right, it's the future. It allows you today to go home, make custom levels. There is some developmental processes, but it's YouTube University, right? So this is where it all starts to compile upon itself. But I think for real, the democratization of game studios is you're going to see a lot more indie titles and a lot more people making games, especially games that are not always represented by AAA studios.
I would just add that I think AI as well, and for this audience, it's really a question of how do you separate yourself as you're going into your career, where AI is not a substitute for what you have. So AI can help you be, for sure, smarter, faster, more capable in so many ways. You're going to be sitting looking for internships or jobs in any industry, and you're going to need to be able to point to something that specifically you bring that also AI can't replicate. So a lot of that comes from what you're passionate about and how you see the world. So those are things as you're thinking about building a career. AI has the capacity to help you get better, smarter at the things you care about, but it can't actually direct you to what you care about.
I love that. So AI is of the future. So let's talk a little bit about startups. So there's tons of new startups that are happening in the DMV area, but what advice would you have for our audience members who have big ideas but don't know where to start?
So I'll start. I'm a startup entrepreneur. I have lots of big ideas, sometimes too many big ideas. But I would say the first thing to think about is what are you solving for? And it doesn't need to be some big question, but if you have a problem, you can't get the peanut butter jar open, you can't find a female avatar in the game you love, you can't, whatever it is, what are you solving for is the first thing to try and answer, even if you're the only consumer for it. From there, I would get tinkering, start, build. People talk about minimum viable product. People talk about I have to have 1,000 true fans. Just start. You never know where it could lead. Round 21 was started as a brand that was blending art and sport, but we started with ping pong. And now we have partnerships with the WNBA, the MLS. We have huge partnerships with people like Tiana. Check her out on YouTube and Instagram. She's an amazing singer, which is also a creative side of sports. But you never know where it's going to take you. So just making sure that you're solving for something and that you get going. It would be my advice.
I love that.
I would say I heard the last panel was touching on networking, the power of networking. So, again, I'm not from here. When I first moved out here, I didn't know anybody. So I had to be the person with my hand extended. Hey, my name is Lance. I do all of these great, amazing things. What do you do? Let me learn about you. Let me learn about DC and all the, the things that are there. So it's just engaging with people genuinely and just learning. Always being a sponge and, taking advice, positive advice from people that might know a little bit more than you.
My one piece of advice, and I haven't had a startup necessarily, but I would say start now, start young. I mean, I think I've got a wife, a mortgage, 3 pit bulls. Like I can't just cut out and start my own project right now. I think I've got folks counting on me. But when you start young, you've got plenty of time to recover if things don't go well, and you're going to learn a ton along the way.
Yeah, and I'll just add in, I think the first step is recognizing that you can be an entrepreneur. I think growing up, I thought an entrepreneur was like a special classification, or you had to check certain boxes before you could do. And I'll just share a short story. My first job in Columbia, Maryland, at the Columbia Mall was Foot Locker. So at the time, I didn't know that I was an entrepreneur, but I was buying and reselling sneakers, making a significant amount of money for a high schooler before StockX. But I didn't make that association, the fact that I was running like a small business out of my my room. You kind of fast forward, and now I understand, to everyone's point up here, you just have to start. There is no perfect time. There is no perfect moment. You literally have to make smart decisions, right, and make sure that you're not going to mess up your own life trying to pursue something. And one short story I also want to share, just like as we were a startup now going on 5 years ago, earlier today you all heard from Supreme Sensei. Ironically enough, talking about starting, we had just started now early 2020. Supreme Sensei, Karima, was an intern at Events DC. And so what's interesting about this whole moment, Events DC, they own the venue, we're doing the kickback here, and now you all heard Karima's content journey, but we literally, when she was interning, we hired her right when she graduated college. She's worked, and now she's a full-time entrepreneur. And so just to even think about today, you all are witnessing some people that have literally turned their passions into a professions, but even for them, some it's short, some it's long, but it's about taking your time and making the decision when it makes the most sense.
I love it. And shouts out to Foot Locker. Yeah. So I started too. So this is the last question. And how can young people in the DMV connect with local innovators to get involved in the scene? And I know we talked a little bit about networking, but what else would you suggest?
I would say attending, events like this, the dope event like that we're at now, the Kickback, but just other things that you can, sit in the crowd and be a sponge and just hear from people that are actually potentially doing something that you want to do. Again, I go back to networking. I feel like your network, your network is your net worth. So it's literally, you don't know, how large or how wide of a net you can cast unless you start talking to people. For example, Ryan mentioned the full circle moment of, an intern that used to work for my company. Obviously Ryan and I are working together to bring this event here. Andrew and I literally used to work together, but now our companies are working together, and you and I need to have a conversation so we can figure that out too. But it's literally just networking and talking to as many people as you can.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, shout out to Lance. If he didn't respond via LinkedIn, we wouldn't be here today.
I would say, in addition to very formal, organized events like this, every day is a chance to network. It is the same answer, but every day is a chance to network. And because of where you are in your life stage, the very simple question I think you could have in your back pocket is, how did you get started? And that could be to somebody who's well mature in their career. It could be somebody who just started something, but how did you get started helps align where you are in your journey with where they were, and there can always be a gem in there.
Absolutely.
And I think also, volunteer for events. Volunteer at MagFest, go to DreamHack, volunteer. It's a great way to, learn about events. You'll come across people who are working in the industry, and build those relationships and do it in a sort of a natural way, and not just what can you do for me. It's developing those relationships with a long-term perspective, because I think that's when as you develop those relationships, that's when the collaboration eventually comes.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. You guys gave a lot of information. I hope you guys learned something. Put your hands together.